Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. My name's Lacey. This is going to be the first video that I post on this channel. I want this channel to be about makeup and maybe telling different urban legends and just a little bit of everything. And today I'm going to start with an urban legend from my home state, Tennessee, the Bell Witch. It's a very popular urban legend here, and it attracts many ghost hunters and different tourists and things like that. So I wanted to share that story with y'all today. I did some research and I compiled it into a Word document that I'm gonna read off of so I don't forget anything, because there's a lot to it and I wanted to try not to forget anything. But if I do forget anything or I get anything wrong, feel free to let me know in the comments and to have a discussion in the comments if you want to talk about if you believe it, what you believe of it, what you think is not true, if you think part of it's true or not. Alright, and I'll get started. So John Bell and his wife Lucy Bell and their children moved from North Carolina to Adams, Tennessee in 1804, and it was known as Red River at the time. They began a farm in Tennessee and eventually possessed up to 328 acres. John became an elder of Red River Baptist Church. They had a happy life until 1817. The Bells had a neighbor named Kate Batts, whom John Bell was said to have cheated in the sale of land or some other possessions. One day, John Bell was outside tending to their farm when he encountered a creature that was nothing like he had ever seen before. The creature was said to have the body of a dog but the head of a rabbit. John repeatedly shot at the creature, but it quickly disappeared. That evening, the family started hearing beating sounds in the home. The noises became more frequent, and John and his sons would go out to find what was making the noise, but they could never find what was making it. The Bell children started waking up every night afraid, saying that rats were gnawing on their bedpost. Then they started saying that their covers were being pushed off of them and their pillows were being thrown into the floor. The family began hearing faint voices sounding like a feeble old woman singing hymns. The entity would pull Betsy's hair and slap her repeatedly, often leaving welts and handprints on her face and body. John Bell and his daughter Betsy received most of the abuse, but the family endured it. When the entity was asked who or what it was, it responded, "I'm a spirit. I once was very happy, but I have been disturbed and made unhappy." Enslaved workers of the Bells also experienced issues with the Bell Witch. An enslaved worker named Dean encountered the witch many times. He said it normally was a dog-like creature with sometimes having two heads. Dean said that he began carrying what he called a witch ball that his wife made to protect him from the Bell Witch. The entity also presented itself at times as a young girl in a green dress named Kate. There was speculation whether the neighbor, Kate Batts, was the Bell Witch. However, she expressed that she did not hold a grudge against John Bell, and she was also alive at the time, so it was thought that she couldn't be. John Bell eventually shared these issues with close friend and neighbor James Johnston. Johnston and his wife were skeptical what John told them, so they spent the night in the home, and they experienced the same things. Their bed covers were ripped off, and James was repeatedly slapped. He jumped up and shouted, "In the name of the Lord, who are you and what do you want?" The spirit then left them alone, and the rest of the night was peaceful. Johnston told the Bells the next morning that the entity was most likely an evil spirit, the kind the Bible talks about. The voice of the spirit became stronger over time and became loud and unmistakable. It sang hymns, quoted scripture, and carried on conversation. It also once recited two different sermons word for word that were preached on the same day at the same time, 13 miles apart. John Bell Jr., Jesse Bell, and Drury Bell, who were sons of John Bell, fought under Andrew Jackson in the Battle of New Orleans. The issues surrounding the Bell Witch quickly grabbed the attention of then Major General Andrew Jackson. Jackson and his entourage, which consisted of several men, and they had their horses and a large weapon, and they paid a visit to the Bell Farm in 1819. When they approached the property, the wagon jolted to a stop. They thought the wagon had got stuck in a muddy creek bed, and the horses were unable to move it. After failing to coax the horses to move the wagon, Jackson said, "By the eternal, boys, that must be the Bell Witch." The disembodied boys then told them they could proceed and that she would see them again later. Jackson and the men sat around telling war stories. After many uneventful hours, one of the men claimed to be a witch tamer and that his bullet would stop any evil spirit it came into contact with. The man claimed that the reason nothing was happening was that the spirit was afraid of his silver bullet. The man began screaming and jerking his body in different directions, stating that he was being stuck with pins and being beaten. Strong kick to the butt sent him out the front door. The spirit was angry and stated that there was another fraud in Jackson's group and that she would identify him later the following evening. The entourage begged to leave, but Jackson wanted to stay and find out who the other fraud was. It is unclear what happened next, but it's said that the group was seen in Springfield, Tennessee the next morning, headed back to Nashville. John began having facial twitches and difficulty swallowing for almost a year, and he was confined to the house by the fall of 1820. He fell into a coma and passed away in December of 1820. A vial with dark liquid was found in John's cabinet, which later also led to the passing away of the family cat. After John's passing, the entity exclaimed, "I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, which fixed him." John Bell Jr. threw the liquid into the fireplace, and the flames shot up blue and went up into the chimney. The spirit was said to have attended his funeral, singing cheery drinking songs during the service. John Bell was said to be the first death in U.S. history related to a spiritual being. His funeral was one of the largest to ever be held in Robertson County. Betsy Bell became interested in a neighbor named Joshua Gardner, and Betsy became engaged, and everyone was happy about this except for the Bell Witch. The entity became and ordered Betsy not to marry him. Professor Richard Powell, who was Betsy and Joshua's former school teacher, was interested in Betsy and expressed interest in marrying her when she became older. Powell was 11 years older than Betsy and was a student of the occult, ventriloquism, a mathematical genius, and well-versed in horticulture and geology. Powell had a secret wife in Nashville named Esther Scott, but he portrayed himself as a happy-go-lucky bachelor when he lived and taught in Adams. Powell continued to express fondness for Betsy and politely expressed disappointment in her engagement to Joshua, but wished them a happy marriage. Betsy met Joshua at the river and broke off the engagement on Easter Monday of 1821 because they could not go to the river, cave, or the fields without the spirit bothering them, and Betsy couldn't handle the pressure. In April of 1821, the entity visited John Bell's widow, Lucy Bell, and told her that it was leaving but would return in 7 years. The Bell Witch returned in 1828 as promised. Most of the return visits centered on John Bell Jr., with whom the entity discussed the origin of life, civilizations, Christianity, and the need for a major spiritual reawakening. The spirit also the Civil War and other major events, some of which she missed. The entity bade farewell after 3 weeks, promising to visit John Bell's most direct descendant in 107 years. This year would be 1935, and the closest living direct descendant at that time was Nashville physician Dr. Charles Bailey Bell. a neurologist, and John Bell Sr. great-grandson. In 1934, Dr. Bell published a book about the Bell Witch, likely to raise awareness of the spirit's impending return. The book contains the first ever account of the alleged conferences between the entity and John Bell Jr. in 1829. Charles Bell's father, Dr. Joel Thomas Bell, had allegedly taken notes during the conferences and upon his death passed them down to Dr. Charles Bailey Bell. Dr. Bell published no follow-up to his 1934 book. He died in 1945 and is buried at Bellwood Cemetery in Adams, Tennessee. There's about whether the Bell Witch returned in 1935 or not. Some say she didn't return, or they didn't know about it if she did, and many others say that she never left in the first place. So this is the legend to the information I could find. I used different sources, a video, and I leave 3 written sources, which I'll link below. But let me know in the comments what you think, and just let me know if you have anything to add or correct, and I'll see you next time.